Well, hello there. Looks like you found your way to the Arcane Library. I'm Kelsey, and I'm gonna take you through my latest adventure today, Valley of the Gilded Tower. Check it out. So, this adventure is written for a group of 4 to 6 players, and they're gonna be of 2nd level. And it's meant to last about 2 to 3 hours, so it's a little bit on the shorter side, and you'll see why. But it's also the second adventure, or rather the first I've ever written that is actually a follow-up to another adventure that I've published. So this is the second adventure in the Edgar Allan Poe series, which are all tributes that pull heavily from inspiration, or they're inspired heavily by Edgar Allan Poe writing. And these are written so that they can be live streamed from the Edgar Allan Poe Museum in Richmond, Virginia by the Castle Mac live streaming crew. And so the reason that the adventure is around 2 to 3 hours of content is so that it can be a really nice amount of time for a live stream event. But it also really serves well as a one-shot, which is what it is. And I'm going to take you through what happens in this one. So starting out this adventure, you will notice it's actually a follow-up to Mask of the Worms, a first-level adventure, which was a very horror-inspired, very kind of classically grim adventure. And this one is, possibly surprisingly, a little bit more ethereal and a little bit more effervescent. It has more beauty, more sunlight, it has nature, and this is all because Edgar Allan Poe had a pretty fair amount of poetry and storytelling that was very reverent of nature and very obsessed with beauty. And one of the things during his lifetime that people said he was most obsessed about and inspired by was the death of a beautiful woman, and so this adventure carries on with that theme. So how it begins is the players are going to start off in the sickbed room of Baron Henrik Rene. And he is there to plead with them to seek something called the Gilded Tower. So what happened in the previous adventure, although this isn't required to play through, is that his wife died tragically. And so he has been haunted by her ghost ever since then, and the players were involved with discovering what her fate had been. So now he is asking them to lay her ashes to rest where she wanted them laying in her life, which was in her family's ancestral burial ground. The burial ground is called the Gilded Tower, and it's located in a place called the Painted Valley, which is not far from where the players are. But the Baron can't take the ashes himself because he's just bedridden and stricken with grief. So he's asking the players to do so. And it's important to him because he will probably let on during the conversation. He's been having vivid dreams of his wife begging him to do this, but in reality he is actually being haunted by her ghost. And if the players don't take action to help him, the Baron of this barony will start to descend into madness, and his grief will only deepen. So the players can prevent a further tragedy by embarking on this quest. And that's where you get your 3 appeals here. You get an appeal to reward, where the Baron is going to offer them an actual keep on his land, which would be a great place for them to start a stronghold if you wanted to go in that direction. The appeal to heroism, the heroic side of the characters, is that one of them with the highest insight is going to sense that he's starting to lose his mind a little bit, and hopefully there's something that the players can do about that. And then finally, the appeal to discovery is that the Baron is asking the players to find out the fate of the Gilded Tower. It's a tomb, but it's been sort of unreported about or unheard of for the last stretch of time because it's been abandoned for about 30 years since his wife's family line has all but died out, and now with her has fully died out. So he wishes for news about the Gilded Tower and its state, and he asks the players to find out, what the lay of the land is with that area. So if the players accept this quest, then the adventure begins, and they're going to be equipped by the Baron, and they will travel to the Painted Valley. It's about 2 days of travel, it's safe roads, and so they'll make it to the Painted Valley. And this is when stuff starts to get weird, because this is a Poe-themed adventure. So when the players arrive at the valley, they're going to notice it's in this beautiful landscape. There are high mountains and low clouds and forest, and all of this is inspired by some Poe writing, and I challenge you to go find it if you want. But they're going to encounter a single groundskeeper, the only groundskeeper, only person in sight. So this is Valdemar, and he is going to talk to the players, and they're likely going to notice some strange things about him. He is going to be a bit glassy-eyed, a bit forgetful, and very insightful players might notice that his tongue is turning black. So here's where we cut to sort of the inside scoop about what's going on with this adventure. There is an invasive plant that has been growing on this property for quite some time called a mortis node, and this is a new creature that I created. And the mortis node takes root in the body of an evil creature or some creature that had a pact with maybe some kind of powerful demon or fae, where this mortis node seed got implanted in their body at some point during their lifetime. And then when they died, the node started to grow and take over their corpse and then start to take over the surrounding area. And a mortis node begins to have an area of effect around its layer where it's sapping the consciousness of all of the living creatures and plants around it. So this has been going on for several decades now in the Painted Valley. And by the time the players are arriving, almost all the creatures and conscious beings in the area have been taken over by the mortis node. And Valdemar is their first hint at this problem. So they'll probably have a sort of strange and maybe not confusing, but dissatisfying interaction with Valdemar, who just tells them that they need to get in and get out. And he won't remember quite why, and he'll sometimes forget things he's just said. So that's an eerie effect that the DM can use to try to make things seem unsettling. And so the players will be directed to take the forest path. And the path, they'll be able to see the spire of the mausoleum, the Gilded Tower, kind of poking out above the tree line in the distance. And then they'll be taking the forest path right here. This is a really beautiful map by Jake from Beware the Wizard, and he did the cartography for both maps for this adventure. So you'll see here that there are some purple spots along the path, and there's heavy forest, and then the Gilded Towers up here. So this is going to lead us into our next encounter, which is where the players have to escape some violet fungi. So what happens here is the players will enter the forest path, and as they're moving toward the Gilded Tower, the flora and fauna are going to start to act weird and watch them. The players may notice that they have black tongues. And then suddenly violet fungi start to animate out of the ordinary mushrooms and toadstools that are on the path. So this is a combat technically, but what it really is it's a way to spur the players on quickly towards the tower while giving some foreshadowing about the enemies that they'll be facing. So a new fungi spawns every round, and so a lot of groups will probably want to turn around and fight them at first, but the point of this is that the numbers of the fungi become almost overwhelming, or it'll become clear that these things aren't going to stop spawning. And so part of this encounter involves the ghost of Eleanor appearing up the path and encouraging the players to follow her and to sort of flee toward her. Because getting bogged down in this combat, while probably fun, is also going to sort of waylay the main thrust of the adventure. So this is meant to push the players towards the Gilded Tower. And then as they get to the clearing, to the door, we move on to our next set of encounters where the violet fungi are going to become even more numerous and aggressive. And so the players will be at the door of the tower, but it's locked. So Eleanor the ghost passes through the doors and beckons them to follow. And the players will have to deal with how to get that door open. Ooh, it's thunderstorming right now. This is very, very Poe-esque, so if you can hear that, pretty cool. But anyway, if the players actually get through the door, one way or another, you know, they could pick the lock, they could break the door down, they could do really anything to try to get through that door. It's going to lead them actually into the tower itself. And during the time that they're out in the clearing around the tower, there's going to be 1d4 violet fungi spawning every round. So that could quickly become problematic for the players. And so the goal again is to get them inside and to create tension with a feeling of needing to escape. So The players will then get the chance to speak with Eleanor a bit, and she's going to give them a bit of background information in the lower level of the tower about what's going on. But she herself doesn't know entirely. She just knows that there's something evil in the tower, and it's not human, and it will try to kill the players, but it must also be destroyed. And this is where we're going to look at the next map by Jake, Beware the Wizards. So we have 3 levels of the tower. And down in the first level, the players will have the chance to talk to Eleanor, who will encourage them to please hurry. And then as the players get to the second floor, we're going to move into the section called Delirium. So this floor, this encounter, is sort of the lead-in to the final encounter. And what's on this floor is a memorial hall that's full of paintings and statues, and the players will have the opportunity to look around a little bit and get some more information about Eleanor's ancestor who became infected with the Mortis node. And it turns out to be a woman named Berenice, who, if anyone finds her painting and then investigates more carefully, has the signs of a sorceress of an evil clan or order. So during this time, there are black vines that have been protruding from the walls on all the levels of this tower, and the air in this room is slightly hazy, and any players who breathe in this air for a round are going to begin being afflicted by a sort of sleep effect. And so characters will have to pass a constitution saving throw or else fall asleep if they're breathing this air unfiltered, which is a fun challenge. Maybe the players will come up with a way, you know, they'll put their shirt like over their face or something so that they can linger in this room a bit and explore. And if a character does fall asleep, that character permanently has to choose a memory to sacrifice to the Mortis node. And now this is purely a story effect. There's no actual mechanical penalty or anything for this, but it's just kind of a cool effect, and it will come into play later. If any characters lose a memory to the Mortis node, take note of it, because the Mortis node is actually going to reference those memories as a way to creep them out. So if the players linger in here, other violet fungi will start spawning from the vines in the ceiling. They'll start popping out and falling on the floor. So the DM can use that as another way to move the party, or to encourage them to move along if there is any kind of lingering. And also, if all of the players happen to fall asleep, eventually taking damage will wake them up. So eventually one of these violet fungi will spawn and then slap a few of them, and that's a way to wake them up. So it's not like it would stall the game out permanently. They're all asleep for hours. And then finally, there's some cool treasure in this room. There's a figurine of wondrous power, and I'm sure you can guess it's a silver raven, because nevermore. So, okay, guys. All right, so we're going to move on to the last encounter here. This is Death's Throne. So, Death's Throne is the top level of the tower, and this is where the encounter with the Mortis node will happen. So in this room, there are lots of vines, and there are some coffins, and there are stands where the players could put urns and memorial things. And as they get into this room, the voice of the Mortis node is going to issue from one of these coffins that's choked with black vines. There are a few fun quotes in here that are both pulling from Poe literature, and also that are sort of explanations a bit for some of the story ties that the characters have now been putting together. So the Mortis node is going to talk directly to Eleanor and address her as its granddaughter. So savvy players will probably put 2 and 2 together and realize that this Mortis node body is the actual body of Berenice from the second floor, if they happen to find all of that. So the Mortis node combat, it's going to be tricky. The node itself likes to fight from a distance. It can spawn additional violet fungi, so it likes to fight from behind them because it has reach. So it'll try to do that. It'll summon plenty of violet fungi, use those as distractions. It can climb, so it may climb the walls. There's a tall golden spire in this room, and they're hanging unlit iron lanterns, and so I'm hoping people will try to swing from or climb those lanterns potentially, which would be cool. And then finally, when the players do defeat the Mortis node, it's pretty tough. It has, oh, let me check. It has 76 hit points, so for a second level group, that's going to be some 3 to 4 rounds of damage dealing. And once they defeat it, it has a final death monologue, just a quick line it's going to say. And then its black vines are going to lash out and sort of destroy and harm the integrity of the walls of the Gilded Tower. So then we really go into sort of the final scene, which is the players need to escape the tower before it collapses. But the ghost of Eleanor is going to appear and beg them one last time to please put her urn to rest before they go. So they'll have 3 rounds to escape, and I would not keep that a secret from the players. I would tell them, you have 3 rounds to get out before this tower collapses, because that will spur action. It's a little bit of meta-knowledge, I know, but it's kind of the same concept where in a suspense movie, you, the audience, you see the bad guy around the corner, but the characters in the story don't. But then you feel tension because you know that there's something bad behind the corner. It's the same idea with the players. The players may know that there's something bad that's going to happen, but the characters themselves will still have to deal with that. So it creates cool tension. So the players will have 3 rounds to escape. If they manage to place Eleanor's urn to rest in this room before the tower collapses, they're going to get a cool blessing from her that stays with them forever. And that, my friends, is the end. The tower will collapse. I hope that the players survive and escape. Those stuck in the tower are going to take a pretty heavy smash of damage. It's not guaranteed death, but it's probably going to really hurt. And then we have finally our aftermath section, where it talks about the consequences of what the players did or did not achieve. So did they place Eleanor to rest or not? You know, what happens in either case? Is the Painted Valley safe now? Well, they'll see signs that normalcy is returning. All of the purple fungi and the weird behavior of the animals is going to melt away once the Mortis Node is dead. Valdemar is going to return to consciousness, so he might be someone interesting to talk to. And then finally, if you want to continue this adventure, possibly one of the evil beings who was involved in creating the Mortis Node in the first place might be angry that its devious creature has been destroyed, so that could spin out into another adventure. All right, well, that is the whole story, you guys, and this adventure is going to be the subject of a live playthrough on Saturday. I believe, what's the date tomorrow? It is the 27th tomorrow, so this adventure is going to go up for sale tomorrow on the 27th of April, 2019, and then if you tune into the live stream, it's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I kind of got that wrong. I in my email I said Eastern Savings, whatever. 8:30 p.m. Eastern. You can catch it on twitch.tv/CastleMac. It's going to be so cool. If you caught the one last year, all the group was in garb. There were 2 new players who were employees of the Edgar Allan Poe Museum who did an absolutely fantastic job, as it was their first D&D game. They did amazingly well. And then, you know, we had bats, we had praying mantises, we had spooky moments, and it was just one of my favorite streams that I've ever seen. I was so lucky to be a part of it, and this year I'm, again, so lucky to be a part of this. So I really hope you guys can tune in. You'll get a free copy of the adventure if you use the download code that we're going to put on display during the adventure's live stream. So I hope to see you guys there. And if not, you can still catch us on my website, thearcanelibrary.com, and check out Mask of the Worms if you want to have a cool lead-in adventure to this as well. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you all later. All right, bye-bye.